The Lemonade Car Show is sponsored by OMVIC, Ontario's vehicle sales regulator. Welcome to the Lemonade Car Show. I'm your host, Lorraine Sommerfeld. We're brought to you by OMVIC and Crown, and I'm joined today by Sergeants Brett Moore and Alex Cruz with Toronto Police Services. Thank you both for being here. This is a fun show, and I can't believe I got two cops. This is great. Right now, we're in the midst of the season. 'Tis the season. Lots of ride checks going on all over the place. I get a lot of questions about this from viewers and from readers. If you are trying to avoid or dodge a ride check, I used to get mad and tell people, don't put it on Twitter and tell people where they are. Well, now, Waze or Google Maps will tell me there's congestion here, and there's no reason there should be. I don't think it actually tells you there's cops up ahead, but you know. So how are you coping with this new technology when it comes to policing the roads?
I guess it's one of those, if you can't beat them, join them. So I think it's, we know we're all reliant upon the technologies on our cell phones. We're not putting it back in the box. And so really what the message is that if you're going to take an alternate route to get sort of avoid a ride spot check, it's very obvious. You stand out like a sore thumb. We have officers that are looking just for those things. Sometimes we'll stage officers facing the opposite direction of traffic, watching just for those things. So a lot of the times there's two reasons that you're turning away. You think it's a collision scene and you're avoiding, you're just going to reroute yourself, or there's some other reason. You're a suspended driver, something's going on, if you've had a few drinks. And again, it's you're standing out. So we watch for that.
I tell people to be honest.
Yes, absolutely.
Like you come up to the stop, and they take a few seconds. So when people are trying to dodge them, I'm like, don't. Like I've got sons, and it's like, guys, just do it. But I'll also pull up and 10 or 11 at night driving home, and I'll say I had a glass of wine at dinner at 7 o'clock. And you guys go, hey, have a good day.
Exactly.
You know if someone's lying.
Yeah. And
you've also got enhanced ways to look for impairment, not just from alcohol, but from drugs. And everyone's getting all excited about weed, and I'm like, oh my God. They've known how to find this for so long. It's not new to you. Like, you know what you're doing. So honesty goes a long way.
Oh, for sure it does. Yeah. It's interesting. I know you tweeted it there a couple of weekends ago in regards to, you got 2 arrests on your spot check, and they did the U-turn, right? So, yeah, we're looking for things like that. But we do appreciate people being honest. And you know what? When you're in a car and it's cold out and you've got the heat on, you open that window, you're going to smell that alcohol. Not to mention your eyes do tell a very good story in regards to whether you've been smoking weed or drinking alcohol. So officers are trained to look for these type of things. And so if you've been drinking or if you've been smoking weed, we have officers that are trained to do roadside tests for both of those things.
I think one thing that another constable told me a few years ago was that sometimes at a ride check, they will bust the driver for impairment. And someone else will be in the car and they'll go, well, we'll drive now, we didn't drink.
Sober.
Yeah. Does that happen frequently?
I don't know if it's frequently, but it absolutely happens.
So there's someone sober in there, and they don't.
It's a lot. I don't know if it's a pride thing or if it's being stubborn, but it absolutely happens, and it's,
the word "stupid" leaps to mind.
Your words, but I would have to agree in that sense that why not? And if a fully valid licensed driver sitting in the passenger seat, capable to drive, and yet the driver's either blown a horn, significantly over the limit, and we've had that before. Now, if you get arrested, we're not going to let that other person drive the car away.
No,
car goes
goes
into the pound.
It does.
Right? We own the car for a week, and your
7
license.
days.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Just last weekend, I had the exact same scenario.
Yeah.
Driver was he blew a fail on the roadside, and the female passenger had been drinking all night, so she could quite have easily driven that car. Didn't. So unfortunately, they both left in a taxi cab, and that car got impounded for 7 days, and he's facing a criminal charge of drive over 80 now.
It's all about plans. I guess to me, it's and sort of land on the fact that they obviously didn't have a conversation about how are we going to get home. What have you? How do you feel? It starts with a plan. If you're going to go out, it's not reasonable to say don't have 0 drinks if you go out for a meal or for some friend's house. But it is reasonable to have that conversation to figure out how you're going to get to and from the location. And especially if you're downtown, where we're from in Toronto and out in the outlying areas, Uber, taxis, transit. There's so many options now. It's you got to start with that plan.
And I know a lot of our viewers, especially as you go across Canada, a lot more rural areas where there is no transit, there are no Ubers, things like that. So stay over, and if you're inviting people,
make the
here's
arrangements.
a couch, here's a sleeping bag.
Let's just sit, a fishbowl, whatever, drop the keys in, type
That used to be
thing.
a different kind of party. Back
Well,
in the
you know,
60s.
what I'm saying is, you can have some fun with it, right? But like Brett was saying, you have to have a plan, especially in today's day and age. It's just not acceptable. There's no reason for it. There really is. It's a choice.
And I've done that with my kids too, because I think we have a responsibility to teach them, because they're watching.
Yes.
And as they start driving, people think their kids start driving when they're 16. And I say they start as soon as they're in a car with you, watching
true.
what you're doing,
Yeah.
your behaviors. So I don't want my kids thinking they can do this. So I'd always take car keys. I'd drive everyone home if I had to. So I think we have a responsibility to make sure that they understand this is not acceptable.
Absolutely.
For sure.
And we've been at this for so many years in terms of the messaging. We have such great partners with MAD and Arrive Alive and CAA and all these other groups that are out there promoting. The LCBO, Beer Store, great sponsors, Smart Serve, all these folks are out there promoting, especially, and now with social media, it's out there all the time. So it's not one, I think people get frustrated when they hear police and folks sort of saying, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. People know they shouldn't do it. There's this disconnect with sort of doing it and getting caught, or doing it thinking I'm not going to get caught, or I've done this all the time.
Okay, I want to talk more about this in a second. We'll be back with more Lemonade after this break. The Lemonade Car Show is sponsored by OMVIC, Ontario's vehicle sales regulator. From all of us at the Lemonade Car Show, we wish you the best of the season.
Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.
Happy New Year.
The Lemonade Car Show is sponsored by OMVIC, Ontario's vehicle sales regulator. Welcome back to the Lemonade Car Show, brought to you by Crown and OMVIC. I'm joined today by Sergeants Brett Moore and Alex Cruz. Before we went to break, we were talking about impaired driving and impairment driving, and I'm going to get to marijuana in a moment. But do you find in the ride stops, the numbers seem to not, they're stubborn. They don't seem to go down. We have little peaks, but is there a hard crew that you're never going to get through to, no matter how many programs you do, are there people who are just, I don't know if they're alcoholics or not, but they are going to drive impaired no matter what anyone does about it? Is that?
I think sadly that's true.
I've heard that from
And you hear stories about, people who've been suspended numerous times or lifetime suspensions from driving due to drinking and driving, but yet they continue to drive. And unfortunately, they can continue to drink. So,
do you have any tips for, I've had people ask me stuff because I'm a woman that they wouldn't ask some of my male colleagues. How do I get the keys? Or what if I'm married to somebody who I'm scared to get in the car with, or they've got my kids or something? And you've probably seen it. You've got relationships where one is too scared to do anything about it, but they get in the car. Do you have any advice for people who are trying to cope with somebody that they can't talk out of that? Because if you send them out on their own and say, I'm just not getting in the car with you, they go kill somebody else. Like, that's not an answer that sits well with most people. So what do we do? What do you do if you're the people that, and I don't know if there's an answer to this, but I get asked frequently, and they're scared.
There's a couple things that come to my mind. I think you've got to engage a family doctor. They have the ability to suspend licenses. If a person's that bad and chronically, habitually driving while impaired, or if they've got a medical condition, they're just not listening, and they continue to drive the vehicle, with or without a license, with or without insurance, people are still do these things. We know that. We know that there's no beacon on the vehicles that sort of triggers that to police saying that vehicle that shouldn't be operating on the roads right now. It starts with engaging if you can, and it takes a brave person to be able to step up and sort of put loved ones in harm's way. But it's for the greater good, for sure, not for just their own safety. If they're a passenger in the car, we always speak when we speak to teenagers as being an advocate for yourself as a backseat passenger or a passenger of any kind. Speak up, right? Don't get in the car. But it is a brave move, and it's difficult to do. The other thing too is, I just had a public health nurse give me a call. I don't know how she got my number, but she had a client, an older person that should not have been driving. Licenses have been suspended for years, and said, I don't know what to do. And gave us a call, and we were able to deal with that and go to the person's house. So Crime Stoppers, calling your local police service, making and engaging your local police service wherever you are in the province or country is a place to do. But I don't envy anybody that has that, is in that position, and but it has to be done.
But I know, to add to that, I know you've messaged this quite often. It's about, it is a crime in progress. So if you can call 911, we take these calls very serious. Potentially this person could still kill somebody because of their impairment. So yeah, if they're able to call 911, I know it might not be easy to do because of the situation they're in, or if they want to, because potentially you could be putting a loved one, becoming arrested, that type of thing. But look at the alternative. You're going to let this person drive
that loved one
drunk.
could kill themselves.
Exactly.
If that's what you have to extend the reasoning to.
Yep.
And I worry because as adults we're saying how difficult this could be, and it's a tough call. Think about teenagers calling on their friends. The peer pressure is immense. Because our peer pressure isn't anywhere close to that unless you're with somebody who's abusive or something. But with kids, there's 3 of you, 4 of you in the car. You know the one behind the wheel shouldn't be driving. If you say, let me out, you look like a dork. And if you call the cop, and I'm like, you got cell phone in your hand now? Call. Do something. It's terrorizing.
Again, I've got a teenage daughters, and we've had the same conversation, and it's going to happen. And so for parents out there that think that their kids are not going to find themselves in these sort of precarious situations, they are for sure. And so as a parent, have an early conversation, and my kids have good excuses. Their dad's a cop, and say, my dad's going to kill me if I get in the car with you, so type of thing. But it starts with that little simple hint of a conversation, and anticipate that they're going to be into that problem. And you're right, bring it up constantly.
Yeah, it's an ongoing thing. And I also think that people have to realize that when we read about kids who have been killed, they take someone's car and go, these are not bad kids. These are kids who do dumb things. And I hate when people go, my kid would never do that. Yeah, they might. I don't think any kid should die because they make a stupid mistake. Or we would all be dead because we've all done dumb things. And so I really beg parents to not discount, my kid wouldn't do it, this kid wouldn't go with a kid that would. Anything's possible. Give them tools to work with what's actually happening instead of the best case scenario, which is not always the thing. It breaks my heart when kids pay the ultimate price for that. We're going to be back with more Lemonade, brought to you by Crown and Omvic after this short break. The Lemonade Car Show is sponsored by Omvic, Ontario's vehicle sales regulator. The Lemonade Car Show is sponsored by Omvic, Ontario's vehicle sales regulator. Welcome back to the Lemonade Car Show, brought to you by Omvic and Crown. I'm joined today by Sergeant Brett Moore and Sergeant Alec Cruz. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here.
My pleasure.
I said I want to talk about marijuana because it seems everyone discovered drugs on October 26th or something. It didn't exist before then, right? Sorry, I roll my eyes a little bit because I think that's kind of funny. Tell me how the forces are dealing with this, and was it a big, epic kerfuffle like the media made it seem?
Well, actually, that was part of our messaging, is that the sun came up on the when cannabis became legal. It was amazing that it happened. But for viewers out there and for the public, know that police services have, because cannabis is now legal, it's still illegal to combine
To be impaired.
impairment or even just possess cannabis in certain ways and operate a motor vehicle. So what I do like about the way the cannabis was rolled out was that it was in line with with the liquor license laws. And so if you think of it this way, we know that you can't have open alcohol or a can of beer beside the driver where it's accessible. Cannabis is the same way. And so it really comes down to a lot of the same messaging about enjoy responsibly, but don't connect the two, alcohol or drugs or cannabis, with a motor vehicle. And the message is the same.
Where do you see the biggest impairment from? Is it still from alcohol, or is it, like, I know Coke's moving up, I know
it is alcohol.
Amphetamines, it's still alcohol.
And we haven't seen really a huge increase in impaired by marijuana, impaired by drugs since we've legalized it. We've always arrested people for impaired by drugs when they were. We're actively training officers as standard field sobriety testing officers, so they can do roadside testing of a driver if they're suspected of driving impaired by drugs. So we've always done it. We're continuing to do it, and we're training more officers to be able to do it. So
I know they were field testing spit strips or spit testing for, I think, top 8 pharmaceuticals and the top 8 street drugs, I believe. This is going to go back a couple years. And so people think, it'll be like a pregnancy test.
Right.
Yes or no.
It's coming, so yeah.
But it's not, which means we're just going to see a lot of lawyers making a buttload of money off of this one, I think. But you guys are looking way beyond that.
Yes.
And I don't think you're even going to be relying on that until it is bulletproof,
So the
to speak.
the spit strips were technically they're called oral fluid screening devices,
Okay,
right?
I make
So
up my
I'm going to tell you that. Sorry, right? So
Guess what? You're going to call them spit strips now.
I love it, though. That's good. But they are out there. But it's another tool, and it doesn't help officers with impairment. To form those opinions about impairment, whether you're an impaired driver on cannabis or cocaine. And you're right, there's 7 drug categories that we screen for. But the strips right now, and the ones that we have access to, or we're going to be availing ourselves of, will be testing for cannabis and cocaine. And so that leaves 5 other drug categories out there that we can't
that we can use?
that are out there that are frequently used,
Yeah.
but those devices don't test for, and that's why, as Alex said, a well-trained cop is your best defense on the front line when it comes for drug impairment. So we've got our standard field sobriety trained officers. I just finished the course last week. It was a very interesting 4-day course. The science works. It is really interesting to see how impairment sort of really becomes obvious. But the real tool and the real, I guess, technique is our drug recognition evaluators. And those officers have high levels of skill in detecting, and they work with Center of Forensic Sciences. So it isn't new. We've had that for over a decade. This training. We've got the relationships with the courts. There's case law built around all of these things. The drug recognition evaluators have been given a sort of a expert status in courts. So
Yeah, the Supreme Court sides with them. People should know that.
It's established, sort of very established techniques, but the technology around the screening devices, the oral fluid screening devices, are coming online. We suspect there'll be, like anything else, technology always improves itself, and so as we get going, we anticipate continued improvements to be made. But to the general public, no, if you're going to consume alcohol and drugs, or big problem what we see is the combination, right?
Yeah.
That the officers across the country have the techniques and skills to detect and prosecute.
I hate that people can go online and buy breathalyzers, basically, and they, it's just for frat houses and stuff and bar gigs.
Yep.
But they say, oh, it's basically it's planning your drunk, if you ask me.
Yeah.
And they market them as, a toy or something like that. But why would you trust?
Well, that's just it.
Buy off Amazon.
Our screening devices that we use, they're calibrated every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
We're using an alcohol standard solution that's manufactured. It's tested by the Center of Forensic Sciences, so we know that they're very accurate. So you buy this
Midway
screening
toy,
device, and it sits in a glove box or somebody's duffel bag, and is it accurate, right? So, and again, it's silly to think that you're planning your drunk, I'll be okay, I'm under the limit, but you could potentially be quite a bit over the limit. So it's not a good idea at all.
No, I see some of this and it makes me shake my head.
Yeah.
But anyway, we'll be back with more Lemonade and more questions for the sergeants right after this break. The Lemonade Car Show is sponsored by OMVIC, Ontario's vehicle sales regulator. The Lemonade Car Show is sponsored by OMVIC, Ontario's vehicle sales regulator. Welcome back to the Lemonade Car Show, brought to you by Crown, OMVIC, Hotspot Insurance Parts, and Sound Insurance. I'm joined today by Sergeants Brett Moore and Alex Cruz. I don't know if sergeants are, it's like attorneys general or something, so I'm going to get screwed up. We do have a call, actually, so let's go to the phones.
My name's Raymond. I'm calling from Toronto. I'd like to know why the police have the right to remove your plates if you're driving without car insurance.
Raymond has a snit on about something.
Yeah. I guess he had his plates removed, and maybe he didn't have insurance on his car. But just for having that particular offense, we don't have the authority to remove the plates. There may have been something other than that one particular offense involved in this situation in order for us to remove those plates.
What would make you remove the plates?
If the plates belong to a different vehicle.
Oh.
Yeah, that sometimes happens. Used plates not authorized.
Yep.
We have the authority to seize. If they've defaced the validation sticker, if they've defaced the plate, we can remove the plates for those types of of reasons.
Another big one too is we see it. Project Erase is a provincial program around street racing and modified vehicles. And a lot of the times you'll see folks that have tinkered with their vehicles and done things on exhaust wise or
Fart cans.
Right. Oh, exactly right. I love the terms. It's
Good show.
Test and yeah.
A lot of the times that'll happen. So if somebody's messed around with their vehicle and bolted on some parts to make it faster or noisier or whatever, they've modified the vehicle and it becomes an unsafe vehicle depending on what they've done to it. They've lowered it, they've changed a bunch of stuff. We have the authority then to remove those license plates because the vehicle is not safe for the road. So that's another common reason to take plates off a car.
Are those lights that are underneath, like the Jetsons or whatever,
Yeah.
are those legal? I think they're stupid.
I'm not
but-
seeing them as prevalent anymore, but I can tell you, several years ago, they were all over the place and totally not legal at all.
No?
They'll
Okay.
swap out the lights. I've seen it where folks you can't have red lights to the front of your vehicle. You can't, for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
You don't want the front of your car looking like the back of a car.
Yeah.
Or they'll modify the headlights as well, where they'll swap them out for colored ones, things like
Yes.
that. Totally changes the sort of the distance and the effectiveness of the headlights.
Plus, you're like a pimp. Like, why does anybody want to do this? I don't understand. Okay, we'll move right along before I get in trouble.
Yeah.
Impaired distracted driving
Yeah.
laws just changed
Yep.
recently. They finally got some teeth into it. I
Absolutely.
hope.
Yeah.
I believe that distracted driving from cell phones takes out alcohol now. Like the numbers are going up in impairment, and we're not supposed to say that because it's almost like saying I'd rather you drove drunk than on the phone.
Yeah.
So I won't say it. But now, what did it go up to for first offense?
So first offense now, $1,000.
Okay.
Right? Second offense, definitely, but the biggest thing upon conviction and the biggest change that happened come January 1st is that you're getting a license suspension. First time ever. So on conviction, if you get found guilty or plead guilty to being of distracted driving, $1,000 fine first offense, obviously insurance implications. That you are absolutely going to get hammered by the insurance next time you go for renewal or on the annual.
When they pull it.
Yeah, when they pull it up and look at your abstract. But it's the license suspension too now, which is good that we're seeing. And but it's not, just to clarify too, it's not when the officer stops and gives you the ticket. That's not when you get suspended. It's upon conviction.
Oh, so you don't get to be judge, jury, and execution
Not at
like
the
you do with
for alcohol. Right?
No, for crazy driving.
Oh, stunt.
Stunt driving.
Yeah, stunt driving.
Stunt driving as well, for sure.
Do you know? I'm telling viewers this because I just learned this. If you're at a red light and it turns green and you go left because they're dawdling a little, that counts as stunt driving
Yeah.
if they see you do it. I know the intent is not always that, but
Right.
you could technically, if you're being a smart, that could happen.
There's a lot of those things too.
First offense was 1,000.
Yeah.
Second,
I want to say it goes by increments of thousands is
Okay.
what it goes. Am I right on that?
Yeah, five, minimum 5 to 1,000 for first, minimum 5 to 2,000 second, and then minimum 5 to 3.
Yeah.
And it's your 3, 7, and 30-day license suspension.
so people really need to put their phones down.
There's one other piece too. If you're a young or novice driver as well, which is I think it was an interesting thing to do. If again the merit points are obviously a big thing as well that are attached with those increased fines. There's increased demerit points. But if you're a novice driver and you get convicted of distracted driving, they don't assign points to you. They just take your license for a month, first time. So the fines are there, but we'll take your license. You do it again, again your license is, I think it's 90 days. Third time, you're out of the program. So the whole graduated license system, you go right back to the beginning.
Oh, back to zero.
Yeah. So it's the penalties are ratcheting up. One of the challenges that we see, there's lots of studies back and forth with distracted driving. It's tough to capture. It's tough to see. A lot of the collisions that have happened that that get sent to collision reporting centers or just not reported at all. It's tough to prove whether you were distracted or not. Obviously we go all out for where people are injured and fatally injured. Of course, we do get warrants, production orders. We look at cell phones and all that. But for small collisions that don't get investigated, I guess as thoroughly. It'd be tough for officers or even for the person that you've struck to know whether or not you were sneaking a peek at your phone and you were distracted when you rear-ended somebody or something like that.
Oh, rear enders has got to be almost always.
Yeah. So and distractions don't have to just be from a device, right? You can be distracted. Look at the infotainment things that go on these cars now, right? And some vehicles are just in of themselves distractions if you're not if you're not aware and
Makes
using
you
it.
wish for the old days when if you spilled coffee on yourself, and that was like the biggest thing. I want to thank gentlemen both
course,
for
our
being here.
pleasure.
This has
Our
been
pleasure.
awesome. That's all the time we have for Lemonade. Thanks to our sponsors, Onvic, Crown, Hotspot Auto Parts, and Sound Insurance, and my guests, and to you viewers.